Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. That's RT Young. This is our microwaved look at the previous week's result and a couple other discussion points about some truths you need to know about a Steve Sarkisian program. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you've not done so yet, sign up for just $1 over at Inside Texas. Get the best Texas Longhorns insight, analysis, coverage. Join the best Texas Longhorns community. You can do that all for just $1 single dollar. That's that first link in our description. So go check us out. Come join us. Can't wait to see everybody over there. And RT, you always on Sunday night look at things in the Reheat. You always take things from a fan perspective. I really appreciate that. And one of the things that I think was big that you got there as a fan perspective is it's the money quote is, I'm done lying to myself about who this team is. And, you can hope for progress and change and stuff like that. And all that's very possible. But I think your overall point, correct me if I'm wrong, was what we're seeing is probably what we're going to get the rest of the year.
Yeah, Joe, I think that this Steve Sarkisian team is going to look a lot like a basketball team or a soccer team that really muddies it up and that drags their opponents down into the mud with them. And you even saw Steve Sarkisian refer as such in the press conference today. This is a team that's going to win with defense and win with special teams. That doesn't mean that they're not going to get better as the season goes along. That doesn't mean that Arch Manning is a finished product. Progress isn't linear, so he's going to have weeks like against OU where he looks really, really awesome, completes some great downfield throws, and then he might regress one week only to get better in the following. Doesn't mean that they're not going to get better, but this is a team that's going to win ugly. It's not going to be pretty, and I think I'm done just lying to myself thinking, okay, all of a sudden they're going to light up the scoreboard on an SEC opponent and score 52 in a week. And then it's going to be that Alabama offense from 2020. I think that version of Steve Sarkisian was maybe the exception, not the rule. And I joked in my 5 truths about Steve Sarkisian article. I think that we think the inner football coach of Steve Sarkisian is a West Coast flashy looking guy who looks like he appears in the game day outfits in which L'Oreal Sarkisian styles him in. But in reality, he might look like a shirtless Mike Elko who has been wheelbarrowing rock in the sun all day long. I think that's the inner Steve Sarkisian football coach. I think he is definitely wants a little bit more output from his offense. I think that is obviously true, but I think he's comfortable winning these really ugly games that definitely make fans a little stir crazy.
Yeah, do you like Iowa football? Because I don't think it's going to get to that extreme. I hope not. But that's just the blueprint that they're going to take. And there's a level of humility it takes probably as the play caller. We can get on that at some point to say, like, you know what? My side of the ball is not the strength of the team. These are the sides of the ball, the other 2 of the 3 that we can really rely on. But at the same time, maybe I misinterpret it where, you want that offensive progress. Maybe are you just saying there's not going to be that like level of jump to where like, okay, switches flip. This is Sark's Texas, all that, no, all gas, no brakes type thing. Like that's not what you're looking for this upcoming season.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to come. I don't think that that's happening this season. I think, like I said, I think it might improve. I think it might get back to where we saw some of the Quinn Ewers offenses. But even those, people now have this, it's funny, people have this rosy view of the 2 really good Quinn Ewers years, even though they were lamenting for Arch Manning for a lot of those times. But it's not like those offenses were always setting the world on fire either. That was a team that was winning with running the ball and game management and, timely defense. Not always great special teams like this year seems to have, but that wasn't an offense that was lighting the scoreboard on either. But no, I definitely don't expect this offense to score big this year. I do think there is obviously a lot of room for improvement. I think they will improve, but I think that looks like, hey, maybe you put Kentucky to bed with a 10-point victory before things need to go to overtime and before you have to rely on a receiver staying in bounds or going out of bounds. I think it looks like that more than, oh, this game is over in a Dan Lanning, Oregon style just because they've absolutely beaten their opponents to death midway through the second quarter. That's just not who Steve Sarkisian teams are right now, and I'm not going to convince myself otherwise anymore.
One of the things that you really offered your praise to Mason Shipley, also Ryan Niblett, special teams guys taking center stage, and then Colin Simmons, who not only made a big play and big plays on the field, but I think we've kind of seen him step up in some of the post-game quotes that got circulated after the Kentucky game and say, this is not just a us defense and special teams with maybe them. This is a team thing. And, when you can combine that on and off the field, that's what you want to hear. You wish you didn't have to hear it, but in this situation, you're like, okay, better that than the alternative.
Yeah, it was funny being a Longhorn fan online on Saturday night and Sunday morning wasn't the prettiest place to find yourself. And I loved all the people who were talking about how Texas has a roster full of overpaid players and entitlement. And I'm like, well, what did you not like about Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons' performance on Saturday? Because I think they're two of the three highest paid players on the team, and they played pretty spectacularly. Colin Simmons has 5.5 sacks in the last 2 games. Obviously, monster game last week in Red River, just absolutely took over the game in Kentucky. I think Nash charted how many times he even dropped into pass coverage on Saturday night, so he wasn't even rushing the passer full time. He got robbed out of a sack late in the game, so he should have had 4. I mean, he was just unbelievable. And then obviously his quotes after the game, I'm going to interpret it as a locker room that's sticking together, even amidst a little bit of a lot of clunkiness from the offense. So I think that is one thing. That's why I was so confident in that Texas was going to beat OU 2 weeks ago. I believe in Steve Sarkisian's program. I have a lot of questions about his offense right now and even his offensive approach, but I believe in his capital P program and what he's built, and history shows you that usually wins out in college football at the end of the day.
Yeah, and even more players like Michael Taft's getting well compensated. Jelani McDonald's getting a good paycheck too. Like those 2 guys were on the field for 80 snaps against Kentucky. I think officially Kentucky had like 85 or 86 plays, and somehow PFF said Michael Taft was on the field for 89. So tells you a lot about what he's doing. Like the well compensated players on this Texas defense are doing what you want them to, both on and off the field. What's up, y'all? I'm here to tell you about Brunt Workwear. This is the Marin. I'm not a big work boot guy, but I might be now after wearing this. Super comfortable, no break-in period, stylish, protective, everything you might want from a work boot, all at a great price. Brunt has been a great partner for Inside Texas. If you go to bruntworkwear.com/InsideTX or use the link in our description, you get $10 off of your first order. Brunt was tired of the workwear brands out there cutting corners. You work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that don't hold up. So they built something better, boots that are insanely comfortable and built for any job site. Again, for limited time, $10 off at Brunt when you use the code InsideTX at checkout. Head to bruntworkwear.com, use code InsideTX, and you're good to go. After you order, they'll ask where you heard about Brunt. Do us a favor and tell them it was from the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. We'll keep on going. And you had another great piece you wrote on Sunday, 5 truths about Steve Sarkisian. Rapid fire. Let's go through these. Number 1, you may hate games like 16-13 win over Kentucky, but like you already mentioned, Steve Sarkisian likes it because it's a win, and it's a win in a style of football that he helped put together.
Yeah, and I think he's much more comfortable in this style of victory than I think we ever would have thought when he was coming from Alabama in 2021 to Texas. I think there's a lot of old school ball coach when it comes to Steve Sarkisian. I already made the joke and mentioned what I think his inner football coach looks like. But even before this year, we saw Steve Sarkisian win lots of ugly games, and people are, longing for the 2023 season online. That's become this big talking point. But let us remind you, TCU that year, U of H, KSU. Those were games that came down to ugly, gritty, defensive wins that Texas had to grind out in those seasons. Maybe it came down also to the offense getting a key first down, which I think is still how Steve Sarkisian likes to put a game away. And hey, they could have done that on Saturday night had DeAndre Moore stayed in bounds.
Moving on to truth number 2, similar. He doesn't think this football team can win a shootout. And I think that's 2025 specific.
Yeah. What do you think about this, Joe? I mean, you were there today at his press conference, and Evan obviously was there on Saturday night in Lexington, but he said, at the end of the day, we can have high-scoring games that I could air it out and lose, but he was really admitting he's not willing to play that way because he clearly believes he's playing in the style that's going to result in a victory. And I'm like, well, if you're claiming you can air it out and score a lot of points, would it be a noble concept to try? What do you think about his comments there?
Yeah, it probably wasn't presented the best way. But I also remember 19 for 49. And so you can try that. But also, like, when you're thinking about that game in particular, if you have incompletion after incompletion, it's not just like 40 minutes of time of possession for Kentucky. You may be looking at like 45. And then at that point, you're just not on the field to give Mason Shipley those opportunities. So it's not presented well. And again, it's kind of a hard truth, like you mentioned, but I think it definitely makes sense. And again, it's easier to say that after a win. Like, well, I took the air, the game had the air taken out of it by everybody, and I played along with it and we won. So do you want me to not play along with it and lose? Like, yeah, he's using hindsight to his advantage, which we use all the time. So I don't blame him there. Number 3, it's going to be week to week, choose your own adventure. I'm with you there. This team's so volatile, at least on offense. You don't know if you're going to get into the 20s or if you're going to just be slugging it out in the teens.
Yeah, and that's why, when people, I think it's really a pointless endeavor at this point to predict, is this team going to finish 7-5? Is there still a chance at 10-2? I really think it's just going to be a week to week thing, because honestly, would it shock you that if Texas won 23-3 this weekend in Starkville, would it shock you if in a couple weeks Vanderbilt is a 21-14 score? I think it's going to be a complete week to week choose your own adventure novel, because we saw last week against OU that Texas ran almost a completely different offense, one that was more tailored to what we saw in Quinn Ewers back in the day. And Sark broke tendency. I think it caught OU a little bit off guard, definitely in the second half, or maybe if it didn't catch them off guard, it definitely wore them down. And so I think that he could roll a different game plan out against Vanderbilt, dare I say, even against Georgia, and it work. So I really don't know what to expect. I think he takes a little bit more time to prepare for certain opponents rather than others. I don't think that's any secret about Sark. I've been watching him for 5 years, and I think that's pretty clear. I'm not sure how much the Kentucky and Mark Stoops game plan got of the collective Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, AJ Milwee brain trust or their power. I think that might have been a Neil Brown game, not to throw Neil Brown under the bus, but I don't know. It's going to be an adventure week to week, and for better or for worse, that's the ride we're on right now.
This is the veggies part of this multi-course meal. The dessert's a little bit better, and that's number 5. At number 4, his teams will play up and down to competition.
I kind of just stepped on this one's toes, but I wouldn't be shocked if this team played another clunker against Mississippi State only to smoke Vanderbilt. That's not to say that they will, or even they play 2 clunkers in a row only to somehow upset Georgia and then could even lose to Arkansas in the next week. I think that's just who this team is at this point. And I think we've seen it all year. They played down to UTEP. They played up to Oklahoma, played down again to Kentucky. That's kind of been a trend the entire Steve Sarkisian era. You have not seen them do what Dan Lanning does at Oregon, where they just, when they play an inferior opponent, they grind them into a pulp. I would like some of those games occasionally, but they haven't really happened over the course of the last 5 years. I guess save the Rice and Texas Tech games in 2021, which was a fun 2 weeks before reality came crashing on everyone's heads.
Oh, and that was 4 years ago. So, but again, those were the veggies. The nice dessert, the part that makes you look back and think the meal was pretty great. The team just does not quit.
No, and that's another thing, for better or worse. You see them a lot of times in a game like Florida, or last year against, or even week 1 against Ohio State. Goodness, that feels like last year now. They're in the games at the end. Very few times have a Steve Sarkisian team been blown out. They lost by 2 scores last year to Ohio State because that was because of a fumble 6 at the end of the game when Texas was on the goal line. But it's always a 1-score game, whether if they're winning or losing. But really, the other night when Kentucky was facing the shadow of the end zone and going for it on 4th down, I thought to myself, I've seen this movie before, and I was confident the Longhorns were going to get a stop. Yes, I partly thought that Mark Stoops was going to do something dumb, which he did with another halfback dive right up the middle for the 2nd play in a row. But Texas, time and time again, have lulled these opponents into these big goal line stands, and they don't quit. So that's an attribute compared to Texas teams of the past, even the not so recent past, that I'm super thankful for and proud of. I mean, this team always shows up. They always have maximum effort. Defense plays with just a lot of energy, a lot of heart. It makes me proud to, sing the eyes of Texas at the end of the game, regardless of what the result was. So I think that's something Texas fans definitely need to have some perspective on.
One thing that I think we always talk about when it comes to Nick Saban is that, yes, he had his team ready to go and execute at a pretty high level every week because he's Nick Saban. He had great players. But the fact that you're a coach and you're able to get everybody, all 100 so players, the 50 or so that play, or 40 or so that play, and the coaches who are responsible for it, to try hard week after week after week is no easy task. And yeah, it's a job requirement. And there's a lot more that comes from that, like calling the right plays, having the right game plan, stuff like that. But to have effort like that, even when there's disappointment and frustration surrounding one side of the ball consistently, that's something worth noting. And it's not going to be the thing that always wins them games, but they lose games if they don't have it. And I think to note that is it speaks, positively of what Sark has done. While admitting there's still a lot more else to grow in, even though we're here at year 5. So RT, another great addition of the Reheat, and those 5 truths, they were definitely truths to note as we go forward this year. So thank you for that. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you've not done so yet, go to that first link in our description. Sign up for just $1. Join the best Texas Longhorns community. Get the best Texas Longhorns insight and intel, especially as we lead up to the Mississippi State game. We'll even have a little bit of crossover, some stuff with, I believe, Maroon and White Daily, part of the On3 Rivals Network. Some good guys over there in Starkville. Should be a lot of fun to work with them this week. So, RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Reheat, the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.